everybody. This is Alan Peterson, and you're listening to Meet the Thriller Author. And I'm glad to be back after a 2-month self-imposed hiatus from the show. I was zeroing in and focusing on 2 books that I'm working on. I'm trying to get ready here to publish. So I was focusing on that, and so hadn't been doing the show. But I'm really excited to be back because I really like the show. I really like talking to other thriller authors. And the feedback that I've been getting from listeners like yourself has been awesome. So thank you very much. And we are back. I have some great authors already lined up to take us through the end of this year, and working on getting some new authors ready to start the 2016, because that is just around the corner. That is just incredible how fast this year has gone by. But we kick things off again here with a thriller author, M.P. McDonald. She's awesome. She writes best-selling thrillers, Deeds of Mercy, March into Madness, No Good Deed. That is some of her books in the Mark Taylor series. And she's also writing a second series with one of her characters, C.J. Sheridan. And Shoot is out, and she's working on those 2 series. So we're going to talk to her about her books, what inspires her or motivates her. And so without further ado, here we go. Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
I'm honored to be asked.
So before I start with the questions, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm married, have 3 kids, 2 grown. 1 is in high school. I work as a respiratory therapist when I'm not writing books. And I was able to go part-time on that, though partially because of my book, so that's always a plus. Can't think of anything else. I have pretty, not typical thriller life, no exciting.
Well, that's most of us, right?
Right, exactly.
And so now, why did you decide to write thrillers? Were you a fan of the genre from before?
Well, I did read a lot growing up because I borrowed my dad's books, and he read Tom Clancy and Grisham and, all those kinds of books. But when I started writing my first one, No Good Deed, I didn't realize it was a thriller. Someone else told me it was. So I was like, oh, really? Okay. So that's kind of how it became a thriller.
Had you written anything else before, or is that like your first attempt?
It was my first attempt at writing. I've been writing a long time, since the early 90s, had written some stories, a lot of fan fiction, that kind of thing. And my first book kind of started as a shorter story, a one scene, I think 1,200 words or something, in response to a challenge, and it just kept growing. People wanted more. What happened next? So it became a full-length novel.
And so that's the Mark Taylor series you have out? That's the one that started like that?
Right. No Good Deed was the first one I wrote.
Were you have any thriller authors that influenced you when you started to write?
I like Dean Koontz. I really liked one of his books from the 90s, I think it was, Lightning. That one, I always liked the time travel aspect of stuff like that. I read some Stephen King and stuff. I can't really say one of them was a solid influence. I had a lot of authors I really liked and tried to pull a little bit from each of them.
Do you have time to read, or are you pretty much focused with your with your 2 jobs?
I go in spurts. I'll read. The other week, I read a couple books. I read the sequel to 1 Second After, 1 year later. I think it was 1 year after. That was a good book. And then I read a romance right after that. So just totally everything, romance, thriller, time travel book, sci-fi. John Campbell, he writes a good series called the Lost Fleet series.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it's good.
Where you said that your first book, when you first started writing it, it was a challenge. So how do you get your ideas for your books? How do you get your ideas for that book and for the other books that came in the series?
Well, that challenge was specifically, how did put your character in a padded room and have them wake up, wonder how they got there.
Oh, wow.
So my first scene was my character waking up, wondering why he's in this room. And I kind of came up with I had just read something in the paper about a real-life enemy combatant who was being held. And I thought, gosh, I wonder if somebody who was actually innocent, if they woke up and the people thought they were crazy, they're accusing him of terrorism, but he's not, and how would he react? And so that was the beginning of that scene.
Oh wow! So that's been the whole series. Oh, I could just get goosebumps just thinking about it. Waking up in a straitjacket.
The room aspect out. He actually wakes up not wakes up. He's in a cell. He doesn't wake up wondering how he got there. He just is. But that's how it started. He woke up and, why am I here?
So now, do you find when you're writing, do you are you influenced by like pop culture or television, or do you try
Oh
to?
yeah, I always
Yeah.
like the TV shows like Quantum Leap and Early Edition and Person of Interest, all those that have that, where the person knows something and they're trying to help others. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of the whole premise of my book, my series is very similar to those kinds of books or TV shows.
And do you incorporate anything on your real life into your writing? Like,
Well, yeah, the very first scene in No Good Deed is a scene of a baby being saved, given CPR by the character. And unfortunately, that was a real baby that I worked on in my day job, but unfortunately, there was no Mark Taylor around for that baby. So, that was kind of my way to fix that outcome.
taking a real life experience, but then how you would have preferred it to turn out.
Right, exactly.
Oh wow! Apart from stuff like that, are there any similarities with with yourself or with like family and friends and that wind up in your books and your as characters or something?
None of them wound up as characters, but I wanted all my characters to have very common names because I kind of like anybody, and especially accurate names for their ages. A guy in his 40s at the time this is set isn't going to have a real trendy name, and so their names are Mark and Jim and Dan and Bill. Well, I have brothers named Dan and Bill and Jim. My dad's name is Jim, and I didn't intend it to be at all like them, but I figure, well, there's enough of them in my family; they'll all think it's about the other one.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
You'll please everybody at once.
yeah, I've got a brother named Jim, a brother-in-law, a dad, so they can all say, "Well, it's not me; it's him."
Do you find that like when you're writing, what are some of the challenges? Like, do you do like a lot of research, or how's your writing process work out?
Yeah, I did do a lot of research, especially for No Good Deed, because I don't know anything about terrorism and enemy combatants, and just what I'd read in the newspaper. Thankfully, there's Google, and I was able to find some stuff, and I actually found stuff that had just been recently declassified, and it was like 100 pages of these memos between someone in charge of the prison. It didn't actually say who it was. All that was redacted, and then it was actually between two people in the prison system discussing this real life enemy combatant and his day to day trials. Like, he wanted books, and sorry, we sent that through. We don't know if he can get them. Kind of little things like that you wouldn't normally find. It didn't talk about any of the interrogation, but there was another transcript of an actual interrogation from Guantanamo that I read, which didn't have any waterboarding in it, but it was still, they were actually very surprisingly, stopping to do medical checks on him every so often, and they're just questioning him. He was sitting in a chair, but still, it was pretty interesting to read that.
So it's pretty exciting to find something like that was declassified. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I on my old blog, I just did my whole website, so I don't have it linked anymore. But I had the links to that on the internet, so I'll have to dig that up and put them back on my blog somewhere.
Yeah, do you find that with your readers, with your fans, do they enjoy seeing that, like kind of like behind the scenes, or do you kind of keep it a little bit more?
Well, some do, but I get a lot of reviews that say, there's too much about the actual torture. Although I counted at one time, there were only 8 paragraphs of the actual in a 300-page book, but the rest
Yeah,
was
that's
just
well.
leading up to it, and the character's reaction. So
Yeah, hard to please everyone
yeah,
at times.
other
You
people are like,
probably-
wow, it really made me think, and so.
yeah. And so now, where do you usually when you're writing your books, where do you usually write them? Do you at your home, or
At
do you
home.
go someplace at home?
Yeah, I went to a bookstore yesterday, a little cafe, but that's not normal. I usually sit in my recliner, put in my earbuds so nobody will talk to me. But that's usually a signal to talk to me, And so, Mom, what?
Yes, of course. That's not going to stop that.
No, no.
And so, what's your typical writing day? I know it's hard to ask about typical, but
Well, especially when I wrote my first 4 books, I was still working full time. So some of my day shifts were 12-hour shifts. I'd leave the house at 5:25 and come home about 7 o'clock at night. So I was lucky if I got any writing done those days. But the other days when I did just an 8-hour shift, or didn't work, I have a friend and we write simultaneously, kind of like in these little writing sessions. We'll get online. She lives in Texas, and we're going to start writing at 7 o'clock, and we'll go till 8:30, and then we get back and exchange our what we had written, and just for some instant feedback and kind of motivation. Like I can't sit here knowing that she's going to send me her stuff, and I can't say, "Whoops, I didn't write anything." So I feel like that keeps me working at it because I don't want to disappoint her that I didn't write anything.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, like a writing buddy sort of. But they're not working on the same books together
now. So.
Oh wow! But separate books, right?
Yeah.
So you're not writing together.
I write my books and we read them, so we know each other. I can kind of catch little things, but we don't actually beta read unless she wants me to at the end. But we don't do it as we're going. I don't critique her stuff unless it's something really obvious or some embarrassing mistake with a typo or something.
Do you have any other series that you're working on, or is it you're focusing on the one?
Well, I have the Mark Taylor series, and that's 5 books. But I recently started a spin-off series. I have 1 book completed for that. It's called the C.J. Sheridan series, or thrillers. I took a character that I had introduced in the last book. He's actually the son of one of the main characters, and kind of have him carry on the thing. He's a little bit younger, a little edgier. So that was kind of my thinking, kind of.
So it's what was the reaction to your readers from that? Like they were spitting off a character. Do you hear any feedback or?
They seem to like it. The reviews for the last book, when it kind of hinted that might happen, people were like, "Oh, I hope it continues." And some people didn't. They didn't want to lose Mark Taylor, but he's still a big part of the series. So, he's just not the main focus anymore. He's more of, a mentor.
Yeah, I kind of reminds me when Michael Connelly's doing that with Harry Bosch because he's getting too old. So now he's got the younger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I didn't know Michael Connelly was doing that. I haven't read that series of his. I've read a few things of his, but not that. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, he's still kind of there, but yeah, he's more of a mentor than the younger detective, Lucia. I can't remember her last name. She's now kind of like the detective.
Yeah, kind of like a Batman and Robin kind of thing. Yeah. Leave Robin wherever to get some power of his own.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It gives me an idea too because my character is getting kind of old. So, well, 50 in the thriller world.
Although I recently get some feedback from somebody didn't like that this newer, edgier character swears a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I just had to I have boys that are over the age of him at this time this is set, and they're in their late 20s now, and although they don't swear much around me, they do swear.
Yeah.
That's just what they do.
So is that your current works in progress then? Is in the new series?
Yeah, I have the first book finished. That one's called Shoot. The second one I'm about halfway done, and I think it's going to be called Focus. So there's a camera at the center of it, so that's kind of, although the first one kind of has a play on the word shoot, it could mean camera shoot or with a gun. So, that's kind of the play on words.
And are you leaving yourself open to going back to Mark Taylor, or?
Yeah, I think I am. If I think of something good for him, I might. I really like the character. It's fun to write. Where
do you get your titles? I love the titles of your books. They're very kind of really jump out at you.
Oh, well, No Good Deed is about the title of every other book out there. If you do a search, there's a whole bunch. But March into Hell, I got that from Don Quixote, one of the songs in the musical. Oh. It's a line. And then Deeds of Mercy is a Shakespeare one, but it tied in then with No Good Deed, and actually the meaning of it was very similar. And March into Madness, actually a reviewer called March into Hell by the wrong name, called it March into Madness. I thought, that's an awesome name for a book. So I took it.
That's great. Reader inspired title.
Yeah.
So how long does it take you to usually from when you start writing till it's ready to be published?
I'm not very fast. I'm probably 9 months if I'm on a good. That's probably average. There's some that have been longer. Some March into Hell was about 6 months, but on general it's 9-10 months. I'm trying to work on that.
Yeah. Yes, the speed of publishing now is such pressure on that one.
Yeah, it looked like someone told me they thought I was doing I was just going so fast, some of my Facebook friends. And it only was because I had I did write a romantic suspense in there, but it was one I started right after I did No Good Deed, only because I was querying that one to agents, and I'm like, well, what do I do while I'm waiting? And someone's like, well, start your next book. So I did. I started a romantic suspense, and it sat there for like 4 years unfinished. And finally, I was like, oh, I'm just going to finish it. So I finished it, and then a month or two later, finished another book. And people are like, wow, you write so fast.
And I was like, wow.
No. I was like, no, that was, I started that in January of 2010, and it didn't get published till May of 2014. So
Yeah.
wasn't
And when
fast.
did you publish that No Good Deed? Is that?
That was in June of
Oh, okay.
2010.
So,
That's 5 years old now.
wow, that time flies, huh?
Yeah, can't believe it.
And so this is the one when you started writing with Mark Taylor. Do the characters? Do you stay true to the characters, or do they like change when you're writing it? Do they kind of like get away from you? How does that? Or are you pretty? Once you have an idea in your head, you kind of just pretty much go.
They do. Originally, I had a character in No Good Deed, Jim Sheridan. He's the CIA guy who's doing the torturing. But I couldn't see him as being like this bad person. He's doing what he thinks he's doing to help the country. And so it came out, instead of him just being a minor character that eventually is gone, he comes back, and he's actually in all the books. And his son, who carries on the spin-off series, so he's very much in there. And I didn't expect that.
Oh.
He kind of took on and a lot of people like him. Like, I couldn't help but like Jim, even though he was the guy doing the torturing in the book. So
Yeah, well, that's good. Add some conflict, right?
yeah. And I do like having him and Mark kind of get at it. They're kind of friends now, but Mark still goes back to that. Well, you did this to me, kind of thing. Back then.
And where are your books set? Are they like in one location, or are they like all over the place?
Chicago. I would have loved to do New York because that's or DC, but I'm not familiar enough with those cities, and I live just north of Chicago. So my son did some modeling in the 90s, and I did a lot of traveling to and from Chicago, driving the streets, being in the photographers, their lofts, and so that came in handy because my character's a photographer. So, I thought you just, got to use what you know. That's where it comes in. It's a lot easier than having to go and look up a city you've never been in and try and make sense of it.
Yeah. Even though with Google and Google Maps and all that, nothing beats knowing where you're riding.
Right. Down there and knowing the streets are one way and two, which way to go on them, that kind of thing.
So is Mark Taylor? So is he like a cop or a detective or?
Nope, he's an everyday guy. He was a photographer. He stumbled upon this magic camera and realized he could see the future with it.
Wow, cool.
And so, he bought it in Afghanistan. He had gone there with a friend. And I kind of just did a little bit of flashback in No Good Deed on this one because people were saying, you got to start with the action. And I wanted him to have the camera for a few years, and I didn't want him to have the whole book be really long with all this stuff leading up to 9/11. So I started and did flashbacks, but then I did go back and write a prequel a few years later. So he's just an ordinary guy, and he finds his stuff, and he's just kind of using it and stumbling along, as he figures it out.
So you mentioned kind of a couple different genres there, huh? Like thrillers, and was it considered a little bit of sci-fi, or
A little bit of sci-fi. Some people consider it sci-fi. I always, like I said, I like Quantum Leap and that kind of thing. So kind of like a Quantum Leap sci-fi.
Yeah.
Realistic, but not realistic.
Yeah, that was a great show. I remember that show back in the days.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yeah. So is there, what are you working on right now then?
I'm working on the next book, Focus, halfway through. And then I have got a bunch of stuff unfinished. I'm sure you probably do too. I have all these started. I have dystopian books started, totally different. Two of them, actually. Two different ones. I have a romance book I'm writing that I may publish under a different name. And Actually, I'm trying to get that done for Christmas, just a little short one. I already bought the cover, so I got to finish the
That's
book.
yeah. That's what I do that sometimes too to give it a little push. Well, I already spent the money, so I better finish. I gotta hurry up now.
Yeah. I got it on sale, but it was a pre-made. It was perfect for what a scene I had already written. So, I gotta buy it.
And so, do you find do you interact a lot on Facebook and Twitter with your readers?
More so on Facebook. I have Twitter followers, but I think they're all other authors. I don't know if any. I think there's like one reader. I have one person on Twitter who will reliably retweet stuff and comment on it. But usually it's when it goes from my Facebook page, and you know how it will automatically go to Twitter too. Um, so she'll respond to my author Facebook page tweets.
So you mostly focus on
But
Facebook. There's so many other social media stuff out
I
there.
do. It's weird because if I post about a new book or something, it's like crickets. But if I ask for, I need a name real quick of a character, oh my gosh, I get like, dozens and dozens of responses. And it's like, I can't use all these names. I have to pick one.
Oh, that's a good idea. I never thought about that. Asking.
Yeah, I needed one real quick because I was writing the scene. I was like, I can't think of a name. So I just quick posted and went back to writing and went back to my Facebook like 30 minutes later and had a whole list of names to choose from.
Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty nice. And do you use one of them?
I did, but I just realized the other day I can't use it. I'm going to have to go and do a find replace thing
Oh, yeah.
because I was going to name the character Dane, but I realized I have a Dan. And Dane and Dan, and they're both in the Chicago Police Department. That would be too confusing.
Yeah.
So, and Dan is established. He's been in the other books. I didn't realize he was going to make an appearance in this one, but he does. So,
So how many pages are your books usually?
about 320, 325, I think 90,000 words in that range. Though I'm trying to make the spin-offs a little shorter because I'm hoping that I can do them faster. And it seems like people were liking the shorter books. I don't know if that's changed though.
No, I agree with that. I found that out too. People, I think they prefer, shorter or just, like I've gotten that too. Like I went too much, you're explaining things too much. Just get on with it, kind of stuff. So I think people like it, like a little short.
Yeah, but then you get people who say it's, it was too short.
Yeah.
And although I price it less than my longer works.
Well, that's the whole thing. You really can't please everybody, so you gotta do what you gotta do for the story.
Yeah, and I felt that the action was better in Shoot just because it was moving along quite a bit.
You use the same person for all your book covers?
Yeah.
Oh, really? You do your own book covers? Wow.
I did my book covers.
Those are really nice.
I had some help for my original No Good Deed. I don't know if you see the audiobook one. I don't know if you have that one. That one was done by another author, Imogen Rose, way back in like 2011. But she told me, like what font she used, and I had bought the picture, so I've actually redone it a few times, added things. But just recently, I put a new cover on there with the guy with the bars. I don't know if you see that one on Amazon.
For No Good Deeds?
Yeah, it's like a kind of a cityscape at the. Yeah, I did that one just recently.
Oh yeah, I see the bars.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of a faint image of that, and then Deeds of Mercy. But I did all the other ones.
Wow, well, yeah, you have pretty good talent on that because they look very nice. Like, yeah,
Oh, thank you.
I never would have thought that you did those yourself. So I have to go out and get a professional because mine is just like slapping text on a picture. It doesn't work.
Actually, March into Madness, I did buy the cover, but I changed the font after it was not pre-made. Tara Schuler from K-Boards did it. And but I went and changed the text a bit because it was to make it match my other books. And then I had to go ahead and buy the image anyway. I found it and bought it because I needed it for my audiobook. So I made the cover, pretty much like she did for my audiobooks.
Do you have audio versions of all your books?
All but the very last one, Shoot, and that one's in production now.
How is that? You're finding that your fans are enjoying that, or is it different?
Yeah, I think so. I had a little trouble with narrators. I have a good narrator now. I had a little difference of opinion with one, and unfortunately, that narrator did my second and third books because the way ACX set it up, where those two got stipends, but No Good Deed didn't, which is confusing to me because No Good Deed was, had sold a lot more. But so those were done first, and then he never really acted like he wanted to do anymore. He got his money. So I found another guy, and I actually pushed really hard for ACX to give a stipend for No Good Deed, and they did. And then he stuck around, and he did March into Madness, and he's doing Shoot, and he did Genesis, Mark Taylor Genesis.
Okay, so that's that.
And I had a woman do my romantic suspense because I thought it would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I doing it. I don't know.
How long does it take for you once you once you publish the book? Does the audio come out right away, or does it usually take a little bit?
So we've worked together enough now that I gave him first dibs on Shoot if he wanted to do it, and he did. So he wasn't free until October. So that's when I sent all the stuff through, and it's supposed to be finished by January. Whether he might be running a little late, it just depends. Not a big deal if he is, but because even though the contract on ACX might say it expired, they'll still, as long as I'm not complaining, they'll still honor it. There's no stipend on that one, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, well, and anything you want to say to any listeners about your books or about your writing?
Anything? Gosh, I don't know.
Putting you on the spot.
I just hope they enjoy them. I loved writing them. It was fun to write them, so I hope they, enjoy them to read them as much as I did writing them.
And then the best place for them to find you, is that on your website?
My website or Facebook. I get messages on Facebook quite a bit, and I always try to answer those as soon as I can. And I always answer emails, Facebook. And
for the listeners, I'll have links to your website and everything, but it's mpmcdonald.com, right, for your website? Correct. And then Facebook is MP McDonald Author. On Facebook, okay. Yeah. Yep, and like I said, I'll have links to all that. So, okay, well, I want to thank you very much, Mary, for coming on and talk to us about your writing and your books. It's been I always like talking to other thriller authors. I think it's really cool.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. You can visit our site at get.thrillingreads.com/podcast for more information on our podcasts. And you can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcatcher, like iTunes, the most popular one, of course. Just search for Meet the Thriller Author and you'll find me there. And I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/Meet Thriller Author. Love to hear from you. Love to hear your comments and your feedbacks on the shows. And I'll have a new podcast, new interview with a thriller author. I'll be posting them every Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to subscribe. And please visit my author website at alanpeterson.com.